Well, if you're going to wait 4 months to return to action, there's no better place to do it than this. This is not Daytona International Speedway, where round one of the 2022 IMSA Prototype Challenge Championship took place. This is the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, and it is one of the most challenging circuits these drivers will face all year long. Just over 2.2 miles of twists, turns, up and down. It has a bit of everything. Some great passing zones as well. High speed turn one down into the keyhole. You can get the job done there, but you need to get a good run off, because then down the long back straightaway into turn four, another good passing area, and then it gets busy. The S's, Madness, Thunder Valley, then into the carousel, out and onto the front straightaway, take the checkered flag and take a victory at Mid-Ohio. A little bit unique in that there is a remote start on the back straight. That's where we'll start this race today, but it finishes at the at the finish line, I should say. Brian Hill with you, along with Jeremy Shaw. We'll bring you all the action. The round two of IMSA Prototype Challenge for 2022, and a good field here, Jeremy.
Yes, indeed, Brian. The 16 cars will be starting the race. The 17th should have been part of the field. That was the Mueller Motorsports number 18, but number 21, that had a big crash yesterday for Bob Doyle in the first practice session. That was actually on Friday. So that car was very, very badly damaged, unable to take part. But a strong field, and we saw a tremendous race at Daytona. We've seen some great races in the past. I expect more of the same today in perfect weather conditions.
The racetrack looks absolutely beautiful. Nice green grass. That's because we've had plenty of rain. You don't want to get off into it today, because while there's no standing water that you can see in that grass, it is still very slick, and there's some puddles that are hidden. If you get into it, you're more than likely going to make contact with something. As you said, 16 cars, Jeremy, and what an awesome racetrack this is. Take us through the field.
Yeah, 16 cars, and for round two of this year's IMSA Prototype Challenge, in 16th positions, George Stakos in the Arve Motorsports with GRS. Ligier alongside him. Tony Kazimets in car number 60 for Volvo Racing. He has not driven the car this weekend prior to right now, because yesterday, the last few days, he was in Indianapolis with the Road to Indy. He coaches for Paps Racing. Row 7 of the grid is John Serino for Offenden Motorsports in car number 57, alongside Jerry Kraut in car number 9 for JDC Motorsports. That's a Ligier and a Duquesne. Two Duquesne chassis on row 6. Steve Scullin in car number 46 for CT Motorsports, and for Mueller Motorsports North America in car number 18, local driver from Columbus, Ohio, is Mark Kawami. Terry Olsen will start 10th in car number 3 for Junior Racing. That's another Ligier. Similar car alongside for US Racetronics is Brian Thienes, car number 77. Lance Wilsey for Sean Creech Motorsports in car number 14 will share row 4 with Jason Rabe for MLT Motorsports in number 54 Ligier. Row 3, Anthony Mantella from Canada for AWA Racing in the Duquesne D08 car number 17, alongside Ari Baylog, car number 30, Junior Racing 3 in a Ligier JSP 320. Another Ligier and Duquesne on row 2, Tony Arve in his Arve Motorsports for GRS car number 44. In 4th position, Keith Grant for JDC Motorsports in the Duquesne in car number 40. The front row, Dan Goldberg, car number 6 for Performance Tech Motorsports, another Ligier, but on the pole position in the Duquesne D08. A magnificent performance by the car number 23 for JDC Motorsports, that is Memo Gidley.
That is indeed the Memo Gidley. If you're a sports car fan, an IndyCar fan, you'll remember Memo Gidley from his performances in both of those series, but he has not had a full-time ride in 10 years. This is the first time it's happened in 10 years after that excruciating crash during the Rolex 24, where major damage to his lower extremities. He has fought to come back, and he's got back in a car in 2017, worked his way back up, and now a full-time seat here in this number 23 alongside youngster Alexander Koreiba, and they have been spectacular, really, really strong all weekend long. Strong at Daytona as well, Jeremy. They had a great showing there, and it really was somewhat of a surprise. Koreiba, without much experience at all, did not put a wheel wrong all weekend long at Daytona, and let's see what they can do today with Memo Gidley starting on pole. Look at this, already playing some games up front. They haven't even gotten to the keyhole onto the back straightaway where the start will take place, and Dan Goldberg in that blue and red number 6, and Memo Gidley wheel to wheel, literally wheel to wheel, coming into the keyhole.
Yeah, that JDC with AL Autosports, car number 23 on the pole position for the second time in 2 races this season, coming up for the green flag.
Waiting for that start zone, waiting. There they are. Gidley pulls the trigger, green flag flies, and we are racing that bright yellow number 40. Keith Grant trying to slide in behind Memo Gidley as they head down to turn 4, and Grant's going to take the position from Goldberg.
Great start by Memo Gidley, timed it absolutely perfectly. Wonderful to see him back in a full-time ride, and hats off to this AL Motorsport team for giving him this opportunity. It was the team owner who's planning on driving this season with Alex Koreiba. Didn't have his license together for Daytona. Memo stepped in at the last minute, pretty much did a sensational job, and they decided, hey, why break up a potentially winning formula? They came away with a 3rd place finish at Daytona, but a great start here once again for Memo Gidley.
Well, it just shows the experience that Gidley has. He may have been out of a car for several years before returning to competition in 2017. He ran last year in sports cars and won a championship there. A problem for the 3 at the start, slow start for Terry Olson in the number 3. Off to the side there, and it may be a Control-Alt-Delete issue because he gets back up to speed, but a problem there at the start. He got plenty of time to go. It's an hour and a half worth of competition here, so to stay on the lead lap, try to catch back up to the field. If you get a yellow, that will certainly help, and then you're right back in it. But Gidley already pulling out almost a 3.5-second lead at the end of lap number 1.
Yeah, that's an amazing start there from Gidley. He's really got the hammer down there while the other guys are squatting.
I think the other thing that's interesting, Jeremy, 2 different types of chassis in the field, the Duquesne chassis, the Ligier chassis, and you can kind of tell the difference between the 2. You look at Memo Gidley or Keith Grant, and it's a kind of pointy nose on that Duquesne chassis, if you will. The Ligier slightly more rounded, and in years past, what we've seen is the Ligier get up to temperature, up to speed a little bit quicker. It's a cool morning here in central Ohio, but Memo Gidley wasting no time in that Duquesne, getting those Michelin tires up to temperature. And again, like I said, I think it just shows his years of experience, feeling comfortable with a car that may not be on top of its game for a couple of laps.
I think that's exactly right. And he doesn't have a huge amount of experience in these cars. He actually did a few races in the Prototype Challenge 3 or 4 years ago, but he hadn't driven one since then before he hopped into the car for Daytona. But as you say, he does have a massive amount of experience in just about every sort of a race car. That's a Podium finish in the car. He's just a great story all around. I mean, he comes from not a particularly privileged background, humble beginnings, let's say, and he worked his way up through the ladder on pure skill, ability, and personality. And I think that's where Memo really shines. He's just a tremendous character from top to toe.
So a Ligier leading in the hands of Memo Gidley, as I said, getting that car up to speed very quickly. Then Keith Grant, then Dan Goldberg, then Tony Ave in the 44, and Ari Balog. That's the top 5 right now. You've got Duquesne chassis, Ligier's mixed in there in the top 5. It shows the competitiveness of this series.
It does. We've got there's 9 Ligiers in the field, 6 Duquesnes, and they're pretty much spread evenly through this 16-car field. So, yeah, not much to choose between them, I think, nowadays, with this second generation of LMP3 cars.
Following the bright orange of Tonis Kazimets, you see the Ukrainian colors on that car as well, on the nose and on the engine section, the tail fin. And for a guy who hasn't been in the car all weekend long, you mentioned it at the top of the show, Jeremy, he's been in Indianapolis spotting for some of the teams on the road to India, the Indy GP this weekend. His first laps were in the car, and he's not wasting any time putting the hammer down and going to the front. Remember, he was victorious at Daytona in round 1. He certainly knows how to handle one of these LMP3 machines.
He does, and he's another great story as well. I mean, another tremendous character. Richard from Estonia, which is one of the sort of neighbors to Ukraine, almost. So that's why he is carrying this allegiance on the car this weekend. But he generally drives with Bruce Hamilton. But after that victory at Daytona, Bruce has decided to hang up his helmet on a winning note, and hats off to him for doing that. But even more credit to Bruce Hamilton. He's made sure this team continues, and that Tony's is back at the wheel of the car this weekend, because Tony's, after that first race win at Daytona, wasn't sure whether his season was going to be continuing. So it's tremendous to see that Volvo racing car already having started at the back of the field up into 7th position and making ground on the cars ahead of him. That's kind of a 60 Tony's Kazimans.
Terry Olsen back up to speed in the number 3. He comes through Thunder Valley with the 57 of John Serino just in front, then Stakos just in front of Serino, the 61, the 57, the 3, now into the carousel. And that 57, a good story as well. The Serino family, Jeremy, the father John in the car, he'll share that with Josh, his son, this weekend, and it is a family affair. All the kids work on the car, and they all have some very interesting names. It tells you just how into motorsports this group is. Daughter is Senna, son Josh, and then you look at the other names in there. I think there's a Nigel, there's a Hans. You don't think they followed racing? You don't think John's a race fan?
Exactly right, and tremendous to see just the enthusiasm for motorsports. They're from the Oklahoma area, and they had some disasters at Daytona. They had a crash there, a lot of damage to that car, and then even worse, they had their truck stolen on the way back from Daytona as well. So they've had all sorts of adversity to overcome in that number 57 team.
I think it's one of the great stories, though, of the IMSA Prototype Challenge Championship. You have all different types of entries, big teams that have been doing this for a long time, new teams. And while the Serino family is not new to motorsport, they've been in SCCA racing for years, and they've got a couple of national championships in different categories. It shows just how competitive this series is, but it also shows that there is a place for those competitors to come and learn the ropes of professional racing. And I think the latter series that IMSA provides, whether it's the one-make series of MX-5 Cup, the Porsche Carrera Cup, Lamborghini Super Trofeo, those one-make series, or a series like this of Prototype Challenge, you've got all types of different drivers who do this because it's their passion, and other young drivers who are doing it to find their way forward in motorsport. It's a great place to learn an LMP3 car so that you can then go run one in WeatherTech and then perhaps move up through the classes there.
Yeah, isn't that cool? And there is effectively a great ladder system in the sports car ranks as there is in the open wheel racing in North America. It's pretty much unparalleled, I think, motorsports in North America compared to anywhere else in the world, where the ladder systems actually lead you somewhere. You can actually earn the opportunity to move on up the ladder. So that's always wonderful to see. Here's this battle for second place coming out now to complete lap 6 in this race. Memo Gidley, meanwhile, he's charging away out front. He actually doesn't set fastest lap on that last time. That's the first lap he hasn't gone quicker than each of his previous laps, but settling into the mid 1 minute 20s now is Memo Gidley, and finally that pace has been matched by Keith Grant in second position. Dan Goldberg hanging there in third. A little bit further back down the field, Steve Scullen is slipping back a little bit at the moment. Had a good qualifying effort, did Steve. But now Terry Olsen, having had that problem on the coming up to the green flag in that Junior 3 racing car number 3, is moving his way back, and Steve Scullen is next on the list of people to pass for Terry Olsen.
It's a great day for racing here, nice and cool. The engine should be making good horsepower, and the track, once it gets some temperature in it, and the Michelin tires get some pressure and some temperature, cars should be a delight to drive. You can run the tires off here at Mid-Ohio, even on a cool day. It is a very front tire, let's call it heavy racetrack, because of the way the cornering loads bear, especially on the left front. So Memo Gidley, I think, kind of established his lead, and he's going to settle into a pace to make sure that he's got a car underneath him all stint long. 40-minute minimum drive time for these drivers in Prototype Challenge, and then you can pit. But in reality, you should be able to do this race on only one pit stop, and when you fuel on that pit stop has to be a minimum of 93 seconds from pit in to pit out. And if you wonder why that is, well, Jeremy, I mean, that saves the teams a lot of money because it saves them crew and equipment as well, correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, IMSA does a good job, I think, of trying to keep the costs within reasonable bounds. Motor racing is expensive. That's an axiom. That's proven, no doubt about that. If you want to make a fortune, want to make a small fortune out of motor racing, start off with a large one, is the old adage. But IMSA does its best to try and keep the costs within reasonable bounds, like I say, for the teams. And they appreciate that, and that's why I think all of the IMSA classes are well populated at this season.
Dan Goldberg not letting Keith Grant get away, and now a problem. That's at the exit of the keel, the number 46. Steve Scullin, this on his own, battling there with the 61. Looks like he just kind of pushes out, Jeremy, into the right rear of the 61. Probably had to lift off the throttle to keep from making hard contact, and I think that lift off the throttle, moving that weight forward in the car, really planted those front tires, and around the rear end comes.
Yeah, I think he was kind of taken a bit by surprise there by George Stakos trying to make a move around the outside. So that's got some more work to do now. Has Steve Scullin. He'll be sharing that car with Danny Formal. And Danny was really pleased with the progress that Steve made yesterday in qualifying. It's a replay of what happened here, going side by side into the keyhole. And Stakos certainly gave Scullin plenty of room on the inside. Yeah. But Steve just got on the throttle a little bit too hard, and it stepped sideways on him. And then he was, as you say, he was pinched down a little bit on the exit by Stakos, but certainly no fault of Stakos, and around he goes. So he's got some ground to make up now. Meanwhile, Memo Gidley just reset the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 19.63 last time around. He extended his lead by half a second over Keith Grant and Dan Goldberg, who continue to battle for second place. In fourth, Tony Ave, another massively experienced driver, is slipping back somewhat in kind of a 44. I'm a little bit surprised by that in the early stages.
Yeah, but this is what I'm looking forward to seeing all year long. Tony Ave and Tonis Kazmets go wheel to wheel in LMP3 machinery, and now is that the 60 that's in? Kazmets must have an issue. He seemed to be running at pace, Jeremy, but Tonis Kazmets now into the pit lane. I was saying I'm looking forward to watching these two run. Now he's got a problem with the left rear. Yeah,
that's unfortunate for Tonis Kazmets. He charged his way all the way up into 5th position before making that stop. Here he goes. Did he just change the left rear?
Yeah, it was only the left rear, so he must have had a left rear going down. And this is not what is considered a full pit stop. If no fuel flows in the car, there is no minimum time. You can come in, get it done as quickly as you can, and get out. It's only on the pit stop where you fuel that the minimum time, that 93 seconds, applies. So Kazmets now back out on the racetrack, kind of where he started, Jeremy. He's now back at the back and has to work his way forward again, but he's got plenty of time to do that, especially if we were to get a full course caution. But like I was saying, think about Tony Ave and Tonis Kazmets, two guys that have been around this sport forever. Both of them have driven pretty much everything. In fact, Tony Ave was a world champion snowmobiler in addition to all the cars he's driven. Tonis Kazmets has driven up to and including Indy cars, all kinds of sports cars. And I'm looking forward to the rest of the season and watching those guys battle. Get a look at the distance between Memo Gidley and Keith Grant. And Grant in that bright yellow number 40 going through the keyhole right about now, and Dan Goldberg behind him, and then looking back to Tony Ave, and as you said, just sliding back ever so much from Dan Goldberg.
Tremendous performance here by Memo Gidley, improves his fastest lap again, again on that last lap. There's been 10 laps completed in this race. Memo has gone incrementally quicker on every lap except for one, where he's a couple of hundredths slower than the previous lap. So just getting yourself in the groove here. As you say, it's relatively cool this morning, this time of year at the Mid-Iowa Sports Car Course. So not a lot of grip early on. Memo just feeling things out. There's no point in extending himself into a huge lead here, just to take it comfortable. But already that gap has extended now to over 7.5, or almost 7.5 seconds over the second place car of Keith Grant.
But I'm sure the team is talking to Memo Gidley, saying just run a pace, be comfortable. You don't want to burn the car down and pull out a 30-second lead, even if you're capable of doing it with an hour and 14 minutes to go, because a full course caution will negate all of that. So, and you don't want to burn off the tires doing it, because you need to run that stint as long as you can. So For Memo Gidley, it's finding a comfortable balance. You don't want to back off too much, lose your concentration, and perhaps work your way into a mistake. So that's that kind of magic spot of just find a groove that you can just run in lap after lap after lap. And the car actually should get quicker as the fuel load burns down if you've taken care of those Michelin tires.
Which is exactly what Memo Gidley is doing. 1 minute 19.363 last time around. Still some way away from the track record that was set last year by Mike Skeen, on his way to a second place finish for Junior 3 racing. But again, it doesn't matter. The relative pace to that record doesn't matter. What does matter is the relative pace to your competitors. And Memo Gidley extending that lead lap by lap over second position. Keith Grant, he also turned his best lap on that last time around. And the gap now, 7.7 seconds.
Good battle for fifth. Heading through madness and into turn 9, into Thunder Valley. Ari Balog in the white, orange, and black Ligier being hounded by Anthony Mantella. Mantella with very little experience in any type of prototype machinery. He's driven GT cars and has a lot of experience there, but stepped into this LMP3 based machinery and said, I just absolutely fell in love with it. His first test was at Mosport. He said within 5 laps, he was so much faster, so many seconds faster than he had ever been in a GT car. He said it just does everything better. And quite honestly, he goes, I've got a lot to learn. It's coming to me, but it gets to you really quickly, and I need to adjust to the closing speeds, the braking capabilities, the cornering capabilities because of the downforce that the car has, but doing a great job right now chasing down Balog. Now, interesting, Jeremy, we should know, we talk about co-drivers. Well, several of these teams out here, Tony Ave, we talked about Tony's Kazimets as the 46 is around in turn 9. Steve Scullin having another problem, the day not going the way that he wants it to. But we talk about these teams having 2 driver formats, but as I was saying, Ave, Kazimets, Mantella, they're all driving alone. If you're a bronze level driver, you can drive by yourself. You don't have to have a co-driver. They're in the bronze championship. That just kind of adds a different dynamic to it. What it does mean is you're going to be tired after an hour and a half in one of these cars around this racetrack, but kind of adds a different dynamic. Mantella said he has a co-driver lined up for next season. He's already thinking about that. And while he told me who it is, I can't tell you who it is, but it's a pretty special talent. So Mantella looking for big things in this series in the future.
Yeah, and as you say, he has a goodly amount of experience in all sorts of different cars, does Anthony, but just loves these P3 cars. And everybody who drives one says exactly the same thing. They're just a huge amount of fun to drive with this big 5.6 litre V8 engine. They've got plenty of grunt, plenty of torque, and they sound fabulous, don't they? So they're just really a lot of fun to drive. And a lot of driver aids on these cars as well. They do have traction control. They're just fun to drive. Everybody who drives one tells me they have a huge smile on their face when they get out of the car.
I was speaking with Steven Simpson yesterday and asking him about it because he's not spent a lot of time in one of these LMP3 cars, and obviously he knows a DPI, he knows an LMP2 car, but doesn't know these very well. Sharing with Jerry Kraut this weekend, Kraut running in 10th right now, and Steven said, it's just a ball to drive. Yeah, I could use more horsepower. I said, well, that's coming from somebody who's used to driving a DPI. He said, but it's so well balanced, it doesn't do anything untoward. It's very stable. It telegraphs what it wants, what it needs, what it's going to do. And he said, you know, the other great thing is there's room in it. And Steve Simpson is a tall guy. And he said, there's so much more room than there is in an LMP2 car, even though the chassis looks smaller from the outside. He said, it's just another thing that makes it pleasurable to drive. He said, folding himself up to get into an LMP2 car is certainly a challenge. And speaking of challenges, John Serino off. He's got that engine refired. I could see the grass moving beside the exhaust. Now he just needs to get it safely back on the racetrack. See what happens to Serino. Up and over. Easy to do.
Yeah.
Easy to do at turn 5. The world falls away. And Jeremy, while these cars have traction control, It is a less sophisticated traction control than you would find even in a GTD car, certainly less sophisticated than a DPI or an LMP2 car. And a lot of the drivers, especially the more experienced drivers, drive with it turned off in the dry. So easy to get wheel spin with 450 plus horsepower as you come over the crest of that hill.
Yeah, I think, not sure also whether car number 18, Mark Kawami, might have had a spin on that lap as well. All of a sudden he lost a couple of positions there. He was under pressure from Jerry Kraut, who went through into 10th position. Also following through was Terry Olsen and then Tony's Casmets. Here is this train of cars coming through turn 9 at the moment with Casmets at the back of this 3-car train. That's Jerry Kraut who leads it. Terry Olsen, of course, had that problem on the coming up to the green flag in car number 3 for Junior 3 Racing, and then Tony Casmets having had that extra pit stop to change the left rear tire, fighting his way back up through the field.
Anthony Mantella now really working Ari Balog hard as they head down the back straightaway into turn 4. Mantella in that green number 17, trying to go the long way around Balog. Nothing doing there. Now he cuts back. Can he go underneath through 5? No.
Not this time.
But Balog certainly knows he's there. I could only imagine that the camera, rear-facing camera, and those side mirrors see nothing but green in them right now. As Mantella doing a dance behind saying, I am here, and now this is a difficult place to get it done. Drops a wheel. Mantella certainly not short on courage.
Not, is he? That's a bold move there, and that train of cars behind him just coming over the crest there to turn 11 as well. They're closing up on this duo here as well. So there's a good battling now all the way up and down the field. Mimo Gidley, meanwhile, just resets fastest lap of the race.
61 with a problem. I got it. I don't got it. Wow, he got lucky there that he didn't get high-sided. So George Stakos, little tank slapper coming out of the carousel and puts that 450 horsepower and turns the traction control off and do a little drifting to get back on the racetrack and get back underway. And Mantella getting back underway with his attack on Balog. But I think that attempt, Jeremy, in turn 11 really set him back about 2 car lengths. Now he's going to have to pull his way back up to the rear wing of Balog in that 30 and see if he can get him under attack one more time. Oh, Balog way off the apex there.
It's a good look at the number 77 of Brian Athenas, run by the US Racetronics / Change Racing / O'Gara Motorsports team. And Brian Athenas, again, a huge amount of experience in all sorts of different cars and doing a pretty respectable job here in that 8th position, right behind Jason Rabe in the car number 54. That's the MLT Motorsports entry as well. They're having that battle for the 7th and 8th positions. And the co-driver for Brian Athenas, Patrick Kujala from Finland, although he's actually born in Spain and I think lives now in Italy. So he's proper European. Has been super fast in the practice sessions and doesn't have a lot of time in these cars. Patrick is best known for his time in Lamborghinis and Lamborghini Super Trofeo series, but he loves racing in North America, loves this opportunity to drive for this team. Actually won one of the opening rounds of the Lamborghini Super Trofeo series a couple of weeks ago at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, but he's fast and he was actually quickest in a practice session on Friday. That's Patrick Kujala in car number 77.
It was interesting. I was talking to Shane Cineverante, who runs that program for Athenas and Kujala, and he also runs a program in Lamborghini Super Trofeo, and we were talking about making the transition, and you and I were just talking about the ladder series and the different series that you can run here in the IMSA family, and there you have it. I mean, he's a team owner that says, hey, you're doing pretty good in this one. If you'd like to step up to prototype category, we've got something for you there too. And many of his drivers do that, as you just said, both Athenas and Kujala with a lot of Lamborghini experience. Kujala, a 2015 Pro Series champion in Lamborghini, and in 2016 the European Pro-Am champ. And so you move from those cars to these, and you just kind of keep moving up the ladder, and that's what these guys, that's what they have their sights set on.
They absolutely do have their sights set on that, and it's Shane Senna-Bratton. He's been around the sport a long, long time. He ran a very successful Doricott Racing Indian Lights team way back 20 years or so ago. Originally from Sri Lanka, made his home in Southern California now for many years, and runs a really tight operation there. The engineer on this car is Peter Jacobs, who again has been around the sport a long time. Engineered just about everything you can imagine he has engineered. It is possible to engineer, and that car clearly has been working very well so far this weekend.
Not only are the ladder series or the other series good for the drivers, it's a great business model for the team owners as well, as we were just saying. Memo Gidley holding down the point, just under 8-second lead over Keith Grant, and then Dan Goldberg. The top has stayed the same. Been interesting to watch Tonis Kasemets back up inside the top 10 now as he runs 10th, and he'll try to continue to work his way up front. And for Kasemets, with that left rear tire problem early on, cool, calm, and collected. It may not have been fun to lose that time on the racetrack, but I think he's going to pass more cars today, Jeremy, than anybody else that's out there. He moved forward, then moved back. Now he's trying to move forward again. And for Memo Gidley, who heads into Thunder Valley and then through turn 11, that super fast left-hand sweeping corner that leads you to the carousel, second fastest corner on the racetrack, he's going to have lap traffic to deal with here before too long. Kasemets moving forward in that bright orange number 60, just gets past Terry Olson on the way into the keyhole.
Yeah, that was Steve Scullin who went past there, who was a lap down in that number 46 car for Motorsports. But Tony Shea's charging along now. He's pulled well away from Terry Olson and closing on Lance Wilsey, who's the next car ahead of him. The gap, though, is still about 13 seconds between the number 60 car and the car ahead of him on the road, but that gap was 20 seconds, only 4 laps to go, so he's pulling him in to better than a second and a half a lap. That's number 60 closing on number 14 between 9th and 10th positions.
Well, traffic, I think, is working for Anthony Mantella right now as Ari Balog is closed in on the 61 of George Stakos, who had that issue early on, and he really got held up into the carousel that time, and it allowed Mantella right back up on the rear wing. And now the fight that we saw about a lap and a half ago has resumed. Mantella now all over the rear wing of Ari Balog. Does not get a good run out of the keyhole, though. And this may allow Balog a little bit of breathing room.
I think you could probably would rather like that at this stage in the game. A bit of a breather.
Yeah, and then
couple of drivers, excuse me, just turned their best laps of the race so far. Tony Arve in the 4th place, car number 44. There's Terry Olson taking a wild ride on the exit of turn 11 there, coming up the hill toward the carousel, but he's able to continue. Might have got some grass. It looks like he might have got away with it there. That's certainly a concern, isn't it, Brian? You talked about the grass earlier in the race. It's wet, but it also can clog up radiators if it gets stuck in that radiator grill. But he might have got away with that one.
Yeah, you can't really see up into the tunnels that go to the radiator, but hopefully it's not packed with grass. He wasn't that far off the racetrack, but you can certainly see on that number 3 as he heads through Madness, the remnants of grass there on the right front splitter and the right dive plane. And Balog did get a little breathing room, and Mantella just needs to take a breath, realize that he's got over an hour to go, just over an hour to go, to get in front of the 30. Relax, take your time. I think he guessed wrong on the 61 of Stakos when they were headed down the back straightaway. He looked driver's left, and I think Stakos was going to leave him a little room up the inside, driver's right. And had he done that in the beginning, might not have lost quite as much ground. So easy for me to say as I sit at 0 miles an hour in my chair, and they're at well over 130, 140 miles an hour as they head down the back straightaway into the brake zone into turn 4.
Yeah, and that's Jerry Kraut then about to go a lap down to Memo Gidley, our race leader. Indeed, he does on this. This will be the 23rd lap for Memo Gidley. His last lap time was a 20.8, so he's being very cautious through the traffic, is Memo Gidley. sensible thing to do. He's got a comfortable lead of 7.5 seconds over Keith Grant in second place, so no point in pressing the envelope at this stage. He knows his teammate Alex Koreiba, who will take over for the second stint in this race, is fast, so no need to take any undue risks here for Memo Gidley. A little bit farther back, Keith Grant in second place in that bright yellow car, the JDC, another JDC Motorsports entry for the Duquesne. So Duquesne's running first and second at the race, in this race at the moment. But closing in right now, having turned in some good laps lately, turned his best lap of the race a couple of laps ago, Dan Goldberg in that Performance Tech Motorsports car number 6. He's got a run going up Thunder Valley.
Yeah, traffic playing a big part of it there, and still playing a part, and he's going to get it done. He gets past Grant, but can Grant use the traffic? I think Keith Grant got caught in that traffic coming off of turn 9, got pinned up beside it, kind of a pick, and it allowed Goldberg to sneak through one of the Mueller cars, not doing any favors at all. This traffic trying to work through Mark Kwame behind the wheel of the 18, and now Keith Grant may be able to do something with it. So the little argy-bargy in the keyhole, that was the 77 into the back of the 61.
Yeah.
Ryan Thenis, I don't know, even though Stakos is down, be interesting to see what the stewards say about that. Thenis was trying to work his way through.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's certainly off the pace. I think Brian Athenas didn't expect him to pick up the throttle as hard as he was expecting to. We just kind of got into the back of them. I think it's probably a mistake from Athenas. I think he might. I'm sure the stewards will look at that one, because you just got to respect the guy. Might not be quite as fast as you, but you've got to anticipate that. I mean, he's been following me, closing on him for several laps, had Thenis, and I think he just got a bit caught out there, perhaps. Stakos got a little bit sideways coming off the corner, lifted off the throttle just for an instant, and that loss of momentum put Thenis into the back of him and turned him around. So the stewards will certainly be looking at that one, and it'd be a shame certainly if he gets a penalty. It certainly wasn't done with any kind of malicious intent.
No.
Just one of those instances that happened out on the racetrack. But what a great move that was by Dan Goldberg to take advantage of that traffic, move himself up into second place in that blue, red and white Performance Motorsports car number 6. Keith Grant then down into third position. Had a huge amount of success at this track, Mid-Ohio, driving of course with his brother David. Those two have been driving Formula Atlantic cars for years and years and years, had all sorts of success in the sort of semi-pro ranks, but loving this LMP3 car and giving a good account of themselves once again.
Well, it was just interesting. That is how traffic plays here at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. You get into the back area of the track through the S's, the area called Madness that they're going through right now, into turn 9, up and over this blind hill. When you're Mark Kwame, you're doing everything you can to hold on to the car, and you've got second and third rushing up on you. And for Keith Grant, it was like, which way do I go? Which way do I go? He picked left. Kwame stayed left, which is what you want him to do. You want him to be predictable and stay on line. But Keith Grant, I think, thought he was going to be able to carry a little more speed over the crest of the hill. Dan Goldberg guessed right. And what you ended up with was two cars side by side on the way up to turn 11 through Thunder Valley. And that was a bold, bold move. But traffic enabled it to happen. And now Goldberg has been able to pull out a couple of car links over Keith Grant.
Yeah, and Memo Gidley, meanwhile, just nice and consistent out front, settled into a pace now of sort of mid 1-minute 20s. That's certainly been enough, particularly with that traffic there that's holding up the other leaders. Memo Gidley heads into madness one more time. This is his 26th lap for Gidley. The gap now is over. It's almost 12 seconds last time around over the second place car of Dan Goldberg. So Memo, just great to see him back at the wheel of a racing car. Hugely talented. We talked about earlier on that horrific crash that he had, and the recovery from that was just excruciating for Memo. He had just terrible pain for months on end, and he had some pretty dark thoughts during that time. But with the help of his mom and his wife, they've got through all of that. He's now back to pretty good fitness again, and he's a heck of a driver, and he's showing it again here this morning at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car course, dominating this race for that JDC Motorsports AL Motorsport team.
Well, not only a spectacular driver, he's just a great human being. You know, I mean, he's always been one of the most approachable drivers in the paddock and always has a smile on his face. We were joking around yesterday, and I remember talking to him a sports car race at Sebring last year in the latter part of the year, and you know, we were talking about his recovery, and he just said, you know, yeah, it was dark at times, but I just wouldn't let myself fall into the trap of relying on drugs to get me through the pain and stuff like that. I needed to rehab. I needed to heal my body. I needed to do what I needed to do to get back, and I didn't need to disguise it or cover it up. And certainly I didn't want to be one of those people who fell afoul of, you know, the habits of using some of those painkillers to get you through some of that stuff. And I wanted to do it clean, and he did. And you can see the results of it. And we were laughing yesterday about, okay, I'm through that, but now I got to wear glasses all the time. And he's like, I wear a pair for distance, and then I reach in my pocket to pull out another pair so I can read with. He goes, I must be getting old. I told him he didn't have anything on you and me, Jeremy.
Well, no, I was doing that for years. I got myself some better glasses a couple of years ago, which I must admit is a lot better than shuffling around between two pairs of glasses. I became kind of notorious for that around the paddocks. And funnily enough, a fellow Jeremy Dale, did the same thing for a while as well. The two Jeremys were running around between us with 4 pairs of glasses. It was kind of fun. Sorry, Jeremy.
Ryan Till,
that gap between first and second has come down by quite a long way. Memo Gidley must have had some problems with traffic on that last lap. He's now coming up behind Terry Olsen in car number 3, flashes the lights going down into turn 4. Maybe he's been stuck behind Terry for a lap or more here and can't find his way past, because all of a sudden it was a 1 minute 22.5 last time around for Memo. That gap came down by about 3 seconds.
It's easy to lose 2 to 4 seconds a lap here with traffic. And I think, you know, Memo Gidley, again, the experience, the calm that he has behind the wheel, he wants Terry Olsen to know that he's there, but he's not about to risk a move to get by him. He doesn't need to right now. I mean, we've got over 50 minutes left to go in the race. He's got time. He's not going to risk the car to get by, but eventually he's going to be a little impatient. Some wheel spin coming off the carousel.
Yeah, and you know, it's certainly frustrating for him here. That's a car that had him that is quite a bit slower, 2 or 3 seconds a lap slower than him. But by the same token, Terry Olsen there makes it easy by running off the road at turn 3, trying to stay on the lead lap. That's what I was going to say. He was just doing the best he could to not get lapped. So when he hands over that number 3 car to Courtney Crone in the second half of this race, she would be on the same lap as the leader. But a mistake there from Terry, who's carried a little bit too much speed into turn 1, Brian, and off the road he goes.
Yeah, but huge props to Terry Olsen, because so easy to do what many drivers do here, and that is drop that wheel and then try to hurry the car back to the racetrack with a bunch of steering, and inevitably it hooks violently to driver's left and impacts the wall on the left. Terry Olsen did what every race car driver should do, every street car driver should do. If you drop a wheel when you're driving on the street, the very first thing you think is straighten your hands, and the second thing is slow down. Don't slow down and add a bunch of steering. Straighten your hands, get the car under control, ease it back on the racetrack. Olsen did just that, and yeah, he went down a lap, but he didn't lose the car. Yeah,
that's right, and live to fight another day is the motto there, basically, isn't it?
Oh, you don't want to sit there.
That is the 4th place car of Tony Arve.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect to see that spin. And like I said, you certainly don't want to be sitting there, as you can tell, blind up and over. And anytime you get off the track, I wonder about Terry Olsen as well, because you wonder about the grass and the radiators. Same deal. We saw this earlier. Wheel spin up and over the crest of the hill. Like I said, a lot of the pro drivers and a lot of the drivers with experience turn off that traction control. You can actually see in the exits for the radiators, look at the grass come out. So it did pack a bunch of grass in the 44 when he went off, and you saw that grass come out the shark fin. Their drivers left, especially more of it coming out.
Yeah, so he's going to be careful. He's going to bring that car into the pits to see what the problem is, or perhaps...
Oh, it's packed.
Yeah, the temperature's already beginning to rise, most likely, on that car, so bring in, scoop out all that grass.
Well, I said this earlier with Terry Olson and another car off the racetrack. You can't really see into the inlets as to how much grass is there, but watch it come out as the air is rushing through the nose and then out the shark fins through the radiators. You see the grass coming out, and then you can see it stuck there in those shark fins. Ave climbing out. It might be a bigger problem than what we saw. I can't imagine that the temperature rose that quickly that it created an issue.
No, quite. I think you're absolutely right there, Brian. And yeah, he's massively experienced a huge amount of success in, again, all sorts of different cars. So he realizes that car is permanently damaged for today. So hops out of it, and he does not have a co-driver in this race. He's one of just 3 drivers that are driving solo. Everybody else has a co-driver to complete the race, but Tony was doing this race on his own. But it looks like that car is done for the day. The number 46 car also in pit lane, and the window is open now for drivers to get to the end. There's 41 minutes remaining. Drivers have to do a minimum of 40 minutes. Excuse me, there's 40 minutes gone in this race, 41 minutes gone in this race. So the minimum drive time of 40 minutes has been eclipsed by many of these cars, and they come into the pits at the earliest opportunity.
And again, this pit stop, because they will take fuel, is a minimum of 93 seconds. So if you're watching these drivers seem kind of lackadaisical and not hurried like you would see in a IMSA WeatherTech pit stop, it's because they have plenty of time to get it done. Don't make a mistake. Take your time. Make sure everything is right, because it is a relatively lengthy stop. Get your belts in. Make sure that they're over the Hans device. Make sure your drink tube is in. And for the crew members, it's the same thing. Make sure that that single lug is tight on the wheel, so that second driver can head back out on the racetrack. If you're in the single driver category, if you're driving single, I should say, sitting still in the car for that period of time feels like an eternity. It feels like you're in a sauna, even though it's a relatively cool morning here at Mid-Ohio. A lot of heat in that cockpit. And for those drivers, they know the racetrack. They know what they have to face when they go back out there. They're ready to go chomping at the bit. And now the complexion of the race is going to change, Jeremy, because as we were saying, the majority of the cars will be changing drivers having to learn the racetrack, getting up to speed, and just a different dynamic on the track now.
Indeed so, and for Memo Gidley, he's comfortable out front here. No point in getting caught up in pit lane. It's fairly busy right now with all of the drivers who have one driver. All the teams who have one driver who's significantly quicker than the other, all making their pit stop at the earliest opportunity. Memo Gidley knows that his co-driver, Alex Koreiba, is fast, so he can just go along there as long as he can. And he's turning good lap times right now, down into the 19s again, extending his lead over Dan Gilbert to over 10 seconds on those last opportunities. He's extended by a couple of seconds over the last 2 or 3 laps, and he'll probably carry on for a little while yet before handing that car over. He's got about a 6-minute window before he needs to hand that car over to his co-driver, because there's 46 minutes remaining in this race. And for the second driver, he too has to fulfill that minimum drive time of 40 minutes in this 1 hour and 40-minute race, or 100-minute race.
And the clock doesn't start for the second driver until you leave pit out. You go past the Michelin RFID readers that read the marking on the side of the tire, so that IMSA can catalog it and make sure that it is the proper tire that you're running, one of the ones that you've declared. And that's where the beacon is. That's where your time starts. So even if the second driver gets in, closes the door, and pulls away from the pits at 40 minutes to go, he still needs to get to the end of pit lane, because he's got to get out of pit lane before that 40-minute mark goes by. 6 is in.
Yeah, out of second place there. So Dan Gerlberg will hand over that number 6 car to the Paraguayan Oscar Bitar, 29 years of age, from San Juan Bautista. And he's done a fair bit of rallying in South America, has Oscar, and some GT Sprint Brazil as well. But he's new to LMP3 this season. Had some dramas unfortunately, in the first round of the season at Daytona. So looking for a stronger run here this morning.
I had a nice long chat with Oscar yesterday. He's just a very personal young man. And it's funny, we were talking about the rally stuff. I said, you're crazy, you know, on this off-road stuff through the woods, over the river and through the woods, your grandmother's house, so on and so forth, that these rally drivers do. And he said, well, I have some time as well here in the States, but really every racetrack is new to me other than Sebring. I've been to Sebring. And I said, well, that's like rallying as well, right? Respect the bumps. And he kind of chuckled and said, yes, it was a very rough racetrack. But that's the other thing. Not only is he new to LMP3 machinery, Jeremy, every racetrack that he faces is brand new to him as our leader is on pit road.
Indeed he is in this AL Autosports JDC Motorsports entry, that black and white car for Memo Gidley. It's been a black and white first stint for Memo. He's stretched the lead out to around about 10 seconds before he brings that car onto the pit lane, and that will is he the last of the leaders to pit? Keith Grant is in the pits as well in second position. So that, I think, will complete. No, Tony's Kazimierz hasn't been in yet in car number 6. Well, he has been in because he stopped earlier on, but he has not yet made his fuel stop in car number 60. So he remains out on the racetrack.
Brian Till, Jeremy Shaw with you. Round 2 of IMSA Prototype Challenge for 2022. Pit stops underway. The leader is in. And the order will shuffle just a bit here as Alex Koreiba takes over from Memo Gidley in the number 23 entry. They've been so strong all weekend long. First in the first practice session, second in the second practice session, then on pole in the hands of Memo Gidley. And now young Alex Koreiba will take over the 23 and head out on racetrack. And Jeremy, I think about the performance that I saw from Koreiba at Daytona. It was spectacular. A young driver without a lot of experience, a lot of pressure on him in his first professional race at Daytona. But this is a different kind of pressure now because this is the first time they'll be leading. He's been handed this car in the lead, and it's up to him to keep it there. What kind of pressure is he feeling now as he heads out onto the racetrack, trying to find some temperature in those Michelin tires?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you know, he had the same pressure at Daytona because he was leading there in changeable weather conditions, if I remember correctly, as well.
Yep.
And that's what made that performance there so impressive. The fact that he was able to stand up to that pressure. But now, again, different conditions here. It's bright and sunny, so no worries there about the track conditions at this stage. But it does take a few laps. These tires will be pretty cold when he leaves the pit lane. No tire warms, of course, in any of the IMSA series or any series in North America, actually, unlike in Formula One or other series in Europe. So he's got to build that heat and pressure into the tires on his own. And it's going to take 2 or 3 laps to get that car to really where he wants it to be in terms of its handling capabilities.
I could see his hands working here in this first half of the lap. That Duquesne chassis, we've said it before, seems to take a little bit longer than the Ligier to get the tires up to temperature and pressure. Those white gloves that Alex Koreiba wears, you can see them moving back and forth on the wheel as he struggles to find some grip. And each corner he goes through is going to get a little bit better, but it's probably going to take 3 or 4 laps to get them to their optimum working temperature and pressure. And every step along the way, you need to push a little bit harder and keep finding that speed that's there and answer what it's willing to give you, but you can't step over the line. Look at the car twitch through the keyhole. Now,
so Tony's Kazimierz, who's still not made his fuel stop yet in car number 60, he leads this motor race for Volvo Racing. And his last lap time, he's going pretty quickly too. 1:18.9 for Memo Gidley. That's quicker than Memo Gidley managed in the first stint. However, the second drivers are now getting up to speed. A new fastest lap of the race was set by Danny Formal in that car number 46 for CT Motorsports last time around. A 1:18.48 for the Costa Rican. He's a couple of laps down, unfortunately, but showing his own capabilities there. Meanwhile, Tony Kazimierz, here he is, taking advantage of that clear track now, and he's got your turns from laps before coming in to make his sole pit stop. He can make that at any time during this race because he's driving that car solo in car number 60. Doesn't have to worry about minimum drive time because he's going to be driving the whole race on his own. But yeah, it's a workout around here, isn't it, right at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. But Tony's Kazimierz is massively experienced and no problem for him in terms of the physical aspects.
Yeah, I mean, it is a brutal racetrack. The good thing is it's a relatively cool day. There's very little time to rest in a fast race car here at Mid-Ohio. You have the back straightaway, but even it is not straight. And if you've got traffic that you're having to deal with, whether that's lap traffic or a competitor that you're trying to keep behind you or that you're trying to get by, straightaway becomes very, very short and not a lot of time to breathe. It's one of the most technical tracks you'll find, and that is the beauty of this racetrack. It's old school in some ways. Its personality to me has never changed, even with track surface changes over the years. The only change that is really major was back in 1990 when they added the Pro Straight right here into the keyhole, the old sports car course that you see out to the side, that they still utilize for club racing and some track days and things like that, motorcycles. But that straight is really one of the biggest changes, other than the bridge at turn 6 came out. That's just a visual change. It didn't change the layout of the racetrack. And like I said, even through surface changes here, Jeremy, when the surface was repaved several years ago, the personality of the racetrack did not change. About a year after it was laid down, it returned right back to where it was from the years before, when it used to have the big concrete patches in the apexes.
Yeah, that's true, and it's just one of the. It's a scenic racetrack. It's a fun racetrack to drive, and just a great place to go racing. I mean, this part of Ohio is very scenic, and when the weather is such as it is today, it's a wonderful place to come and watch some motor racing.
54 right now. In front, that's Tyler Maxson, just in front of the 77, Kayala. And Kayala, a lot more experience in racing in general than young Tyler Maxson in front of him. Both of these drivers very quick, though. Maxson ran yesterday in the Michelin Pilot Challenge race, so he has experience on this racetrack. And I was talking to him about the difference in the Michelin Pilot Challenge car that he ran versus the LMP3 prototype. I mean, there's a world of difference. The aerodynamics, he drives a Hyundai and Michelin Pilot Challenge. That's a front-wheel drive car. This is rear-wheel drive, 450-plus horsepower here. And like I said, a lot of aerodynamic downforce. But that young driver, he said, it was really easy to kind of separate the two of them. The braking zone, he said, was actually the brake markers you used about the same, because even though the LMP3 car is a lot faster, it has a lot better brakes. So he said there's some similarities, but yeah, there are a lot of differences as well.
Interesting battle here between these two. Fastest lap, by the way, has been reset last couple of laps by Parker Thompson, who's taken over from Lance Willsey in car number 14. That's a Sean Creech Motorsport entry. And he has got this lap time down to a 1 minute 17.584. About 3 tenths away from the lap record of Mike Skeen, but good lap times here by Parker Thompson. He's the only guy in the 17s. He goes quicker again there, 17.583 for Parker Thompson on his 38th lap, and he's closing in on that battle ahead of him that we were just watching between Tyler Maxson and Patrick Kuyala. He's about 8 seconds behind at the moment.
But Parker Thompson, another one of those, we talked about it. It's one of those deals where you've got drivers in this series who are very content to be here, and other drivers like Parker Thompson, Tyler Maxsons of the world, guys that want to use this as a springboard to move forward. Parker Thompson, a standout in Porsche Carrera Cup in the IMSA family, won both races at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca last time out, and just a big smile on his face. Interesting clothing he had on. I'll say this, when I went into the trailer and talked to him this morning before the race, I won't give it away, but I think I kind of embarrassed him. I walked in and he was getting suited up and ready to go, and he was like, no, I didn't plan to wear this. It just kind of happened this way. But anyway, I won't go too far into that, but just a great young man. And no. Well, I'll put it this way. It was Christmas themed, and he goes, no, I just pulled them out of the drawer. I didn't realize they were red and white candy canes on them. So anyway.
Good man.
So, but I mean, just a great young man. It's just a super good talent. You were talking about Jeremy Dale earlier. Parker Thompson drives with Jeremy Dale, JDX Racing in the Carrera Cup. And One of these guys who he said, I have aerodynamic experience. I finished second in just about any championship that you can name in the road to Indy. So I've got Formula car experience that had aerodynamics involved with it. But yeah, the LMP3 car, a little bit different, but I think I'm coming to grips with it pretty well, and I'm just having a ball. Hopefully I'll get an opportunity to do more of these. And
it was just a pit stop there for car number 30. That was a penalty. Thomas Merrill running in 5th position in that Junior 3 racing car, taking over from Ari Baylog. Thomas Merrill, he lives literally around the corner from WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Had a lot of success in Trans Am cars in recent years. He's a very accomplished driver coach and a very accomplished driver in general himself. For some reason, he's managed to maintain a bronze status in terms of the driver ratings over the last few years. He's quick, he's fast, but unfortunately he just served a penalty for running over a hose in the pit lane. Actually, I'm not sure whether it was in his pit or somebody else's pit, but he ran over some pit equipment, therefore has to serve a drive-through penalty, and that'll be very costly for that car number 30. And Thomas was up into the 5th position, which is where Ari Baylog had been running in the early stages of this race, so that's going to be pretty costly for that team. Meanwhile, this battle continues now for 5th place, moving ahead, taking advantage of that extra pit stop for the car number 30. Tyler Maxson, the youngster here, one of the youngest drivers in the race in that MLT Motorsports entry. That's the car that won the championship last season, with Josh Sarche and Dakota Dickerson, who are this weekend making their debut, or that team's debut, in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. And Tyler Maxson here is doing a fine job, just 17 years of age, from Bogart in Georgia. He is the youngest driver in the field. Made his debut at Daytona, just his second race then in these cars, and holding off somebody who's much more accomplished and experienced in overall terms in Patrick Kuyala.
Yeah, I've been impressed with Maxson behind the wheel here. I thought Kuyala, his experience would help him perhaps get by Maxson, and got it to the rear wing, but 2 Ligier chassis, Tyler Maxson has not put a wheel wrong, and he has matched the pace or exceeded the pace for the more experienced Kuyala for the last several laps. And I think, again, you look at Tyler Maxson's experience in Michelin Pilot Challenge, where the field is deeper with the number of cars. They've got GS cars and the TCR car, so there's always something going on. Right now, this must seem relatively relaxing for him. He only has 1 car on his rear wing.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And again, another very talented youngster, though, is Tyler. Good to see him spreading his wings and getting experience in different categories. That is always a good move for young drivers. The more different cars you can drive, the more experience you have, you can gain, and you can draw from as you extend your racing career.
So interesting, Kazimets still has yet to make his fuel stop. 48-second lead in hand. It's a 93-second stop when they fuel, and it doesn't matter. I was just thinking about this. I was like, well, if he goes a long way, they could do a time fuel fill at the end, and get him right back out. But that strategy doesn't work in IMSA Prototype Challenge, Jeremy, because if the fuel hose goes in, it's 93 seconds, whether you need 10 liters or a full fill.
Indeed so. Which is frustrating for him right now, as somebody who's been around this sport a long time. He's coming up here to put a lap on the 3rd place car of David Grant. Is Tony's Kazimets. He's just turned his best lap of the race, has our race leader, 1 minute 18.802. It's about it's a full second behind Parker Thompson's best. Parker Thompson still the only driver in the 17s. Remarkable lap by him. He's running in that kind of 7th position. But back to this battle here for the 5th and 6th place, Tyler Maxson soaking up that pressure from Patrick Kuyala, who's fastest in the practice sessions yesterday with a lap time at 1:17.8.
Round 2 of the 2022 IMSA Prototype Challenge Championship continues from Mid-Ohio. It's been almost 4 months since these teams and drivers were in action, but great to see them here at this racetrack, especially such a different track than where round one was. You think about the high banks of Daytona International Speedway, and now the flowing natural terrain road course here at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. And this battle for fifth continues to rage. The 54, Tyler Maxson through the keyhole, dragging the 77 of Kuyala with him. Kuyala not letting Maxson get away. Kazimets, meanwhile, Tonis Kazimets up front in the 60, yet to make his fuel stop. That big lead that he has will indeed go away. The question is, can you extend it anymore? And Jeremy, I'm kind of looking at the gap that he has, and as he gets caught in traffic, I almost feel like you should stop as soon as you get held up with traffic so that you can maximize the gain that you got and make sure you're not losing any more time in traffic. And then you've got time to get back out there and fight again in that latter stint after you've made your fuel fill.
Exactly right. And did he get past the lap? Did he put David Grant a lap down? I didn't quite
believe he did.
I looked at it because I think he must have done, because he just turned again for the second lap running. His best lap of the race, or this time, is 19.3 as he comes across the line. So a little bit slower this time around. But his gap over Alex Koreiba in second position is maintaining pretty constant. Around about 48 seconds he has over the second place car. And as we just saw visually, he's got pretty much exactly a lap lead over the third place car of David Grant. But he's going to drop. He might be able to get out in the top 5 after he makes his pit stop. Tony's Kazimets. He's going to be pushing as hard as he can. But literally, this battle here developing in the midfield now, with Oscar Bitar has been caught not only by Tyler Maxson and Patrick Kujala, but also Parker Thompson is right there as well. 4-car battle for 4th position.
What you see is not always what you get in motorsports, and that's exactly what you're looking at here. Tonis Kazimets with the lead, but 1 minute and 33 seconds will be given up on the stop that Kazimets must make for fuel. As soon as he comes in for fuel, that's the minimum pit stop time, and then the complexion of the race changes. The lead then currently, Jeremy, should go to Alex Koreiba, then David Grant, Oscar Bitar, Tyler Maxson, Kuyala. This group that's tangled up coming through the carousel is all going to come into play as soon as Kazimets heads to pit lane.
Indeed, another best lap of the race there by the race leader. Tonis Kazimets, 1:18.7 now for a race leader, so he's extending his advantage just a little bit over. Actually, he didn't on that last lap, because Alex Koreiba was actually a little bit quicker. 18.6 for Koreiba. Well, this battle here for 4th position.
Wow,
tremendous.
Wow, Kuyala does manage to get by Maxson, and I believe it was Oscar Bitar that kind of held up that train. They were all in a gaggle coming out of turn 1 and down to the keyhole, a lot of bobbing and weaving, and Tyler Maxson got the worst of that.
Yeah, there's a lesson there. Parker Thompson goes by.
Look at that.
Oh, Maxson trying to get that the power line coming over the crest of the hill in turn 5 to get back past Parker Thompson, unable to make that happen. So Thompson now up into, what is that, 5th position, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, that is great stuff indeed. That gaggle into the keyhole really changed things up that last lap. You saw 4 or 5 cars into the keyhole that last time by, and that's where I think Tyler Maxson just guessed wrong, moved to the wrong place, got checked up, and that's what allowed Kuyala by. And that's what we're used to seeing, especially in the latter portions of these prototype challenge races.
Yeah, so 6th place right now for Parker, but he's going to look to the inside there of the Koreiba 77, unable to make that one stick.
Here it was from last time. You see Kuyala goes to the outside, and Maxson in the 54 stays to the inside. He didn't really get caught up in traffic. It was just a powerful move by Kuyala, but what that did was it slowed Maxson down, and it allowed Parker Thompson to get there, and that's what allowed Thompson then to get by Maxson just a little bit later than that. I think Thompson did a great job of reading that, realizing those 2 cars side by side into the keyhole. We're going to check everything else up. He sat back, got the great run off the keyhole, and then got Maxson just a little bit later.
Oops. Ouch.
Wow, Bitar around into the fence. Did he get help up and over the crest of turn 9? Did Kuyala get into the back of the 6 up and over the crest? Thompson now looking to the outside. Tyler Maxson trying to slide back up the inside and regain the position from Thompson. That was wild, just up and over the top. I could tell that Oscar Bitar was a little bit loose in that red and blue number 6 as he crested the hill there in turn 9, but I don't know if Kujala got into the back of him or not. Take a look. Here they come through Madness. That's Bitar in the blue and white number 6. He's already a little loose, a little out of shape. Jeremy, he gets loose at the top.
No, just lost it on his own. No, he lost it on his own. He had a bit of a tank stop, and I wonder whether one of the tyres was losing pressure, perhaps. So all of a sudden, that car just snapped sideways on him. He had a wobble going into the corner, as you say, Brian, and then he lost it over the crest of the hill.
And I do think there was some contact there, but again, Jeremy, I don't think the contact, it was incidental. I think Kujala got caught up in a car that had a problem in front of him and had nowhere to go.
I agree. Kind of incidental contact there, I think, if there was any at all between those two, but that was a scary moment for Oscar Bitar. He's got it going again. That's the good news, and he's still inside the top 10, and he might well be still on the lead lap. So if throws a full course caution, he could potentially get himself back into the fray.
He's got some damage to the left rear body work and perhaps some of the aerodynamics. We call it the cheese wedge that's there behind the wheel. That may affect downforce just a bit. Hopefully it doesn't affect the tire. It doesn't rub into that left rear Michelin and begin to overheat it or cut it down. But you know, I don't think television does the elevation changes here at Mid-Ohio justice. That is a completely blind corner, and they call the area just before it Madness because you're up and over and there's a big compression right about the time you come into a braking zone. And if you don't have the car exactly where it needs to be and you come off the throttle too aggressively at that compression in the braking zone, the car can get out of shape, and that's what we saw with Bitar. Car a little out of shape before he ever got to turn 9. Now, David Grant around in the same corner.
Yeah, so is there some fluid down there potentially?
That's a good question.
Of the racetrack, because that's a very dangerous place. You're right over the crest. You cannot see that car at all as you come over, even to the apex of that corner. Let's have a look, see what happens.
He just loses it coming off the apex.
Yeah, and running in a comfortable 3rd position.
Yeah,
was David Grant.
Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on turn 9. Perhaps there is some fluid down, but again, I'll go back to the traction control aspect. A lot of these drivers not using it because they feel like it's too intrusive and they can't really turn it down enough. So the best level of turn down is turned off. And at that light area there in turn 9, when the car gets light coming across the top of the hill, trying to squeeze that 450 plus horsepower down can be a challenge at time, and it only takes a little bit of wheel spin up and over the top. The car is always a little bit loose there. Trying to squeeze that power down can sometimes bite you. Alex Koreiba should be your leader when Kazimets pits, and he's working through traffic very smoothly, methodically. He knows that he'll have a nice lead in hand when Kazimets makes that pit stop, which he has yet to do, and there he is. Was wondering when it was going to happen, and Jeremy, as I said earlier, and I think you and I were on the same page, I think I would have tried to make that a little bit earlier so I would have had more time on the clock to claw my way back up to the front.
Well, he's got plenty of tyres here, so are they going to change tyres on this car as well?
Nope.
Are you allowed to change tyres during the pit stop?
Nope.
Aren't you? Okay.
Well, the left front did come off, so they are going to change tires.
Yeah,
but they've got plenty of time.
Well, and he's got plenty of tires this weekend as well because he hasn't used it.
Yeah, well, that's a good point.
On the track.
Well, yeah.
You know what? The surprise to me is that he's managed to go 69 minutes on this first tank of fuel, which is a long, long way. Generally speaking, it's around about an hour. So he's done 69 minutes. It's been green all the way. And to extend the fuel margin that long is a very impressive effort by Tony's Kazimets. But now through into the lead will go Alex Koreiba. He won't be classified as the lead on this lap because Tony's Kazimets' pit is past the start-finish line, so he's already scored as completing his 51st lap. But next time around, Alex Koreiba will be leading this race. Been an exemplary drive by him. He's been pretty much matching the pace, maybe closed in just a little bit on Tony's Kazimierz during his stint, despite the fact he's well clear, almost a minute clear, 50 seconds clear of the second, what is now the second place battle with Patrick Kujala and Parker Thompson. So they are scrapping for second position in number 77 and 14.
Well, yeah, in fact,
or are they?
I think Tony's Kazimierz is going to come out in second place. Kazimierz now out of the pits. Kujala, Thompson should just be coming into the shot at the top of the screen through turn one. But Kazimierz on cold tires. Not only are they cold, I noticed that they are sticker tires. They haven't been scrubbed in because he hadn't been in the car. He didn't have a chance, like you said, Jeremy. Certainly has a lot of tires, so it's going to take 3 laps or so to get those Michelins up to temperature and up to pressure to their ideal working and performance capabilities for Tony's Kazimierz. Meanwhile, Patrick Kujala and Parker Thompson are going to be closing down on him. They're right behind him right now, and they've got much better machinery underneath them.
Yeah, they've got their tyres fully up to temperature here. Those Michelin tyres, as you say, do take a few laps to come in. So Tony, with his experience, he's going to get up to speed as quickly as he can, but he can see that Patrick Kujala is right behind him, and Kujala has actually edged away just a little bit from Parker Thompson over the course of the last lap or two. But it is Parker Thompson who has set the fastest lap of the race and of the weekend, 1 minute 17.583, and now these two, a mistake there for Thompson in the carousel, but to Kujala right with Tony's Kazimierz and head towards turn one.
And if Kujala's going to get it done, he really needs to get it done in this next half lap, I believe, because once you get back into madness, it's very difficult to get a pass done. He needs to strike while the iron or the Michelin tires that he has on the 77 are hot and are still a bit cold on the 60. Because if he waits too long, Tony's Kazimierz is going to be one tough customer to deal with. Down the back straightaway towards turn 4, heavy braking at the end, and then through the S's. Kujala looks to the inside, gets it done relatively easily. Can Parker Thompson close up on the back of the 60? He's right there, but Thompson, with a mistake in the middle of the carousel last time, washed out, lost 5 or 6 car lengths, and has to claw his way back up to this battle, and in so doing gives Tony's Kazimierz just that much more time to get those tires up to temperature.
Yeah, but Kazimierz, once he gets these tyres up to temperature, it take 2 or 3 laps, but he has now an absolutely brand new set, as you said, of Michelin tyres, so he's going to have really good pace in that number 60 Volvo Racing Ligier for the closing stages of this race. His tyres a good bit fresher, of course, than those cars that already made their pit stops, 20 laps ago. So if he'll just try not to lose too much ground, and then as the other competitors perhaps lose just a little bit of grip, but these tyres are pretty consistent. And I hope that that Kujala comes back into his grasp.
Anthony Mantella in the green, number 17, to the left side of the picture, alongside the 6. And he was somewhat alongside of him as they got to the keyhole there, and the 6, little contact right rear to left front. Hopefully that did not damage the Michelin tire. Meanwhile, Parker Thompson, with those fresher Michelin tires, has gotten past Kazimierz. But as you said, this is not over, because once the temperatures and pressures do get ideal for Kazimierz, that Michelin rubber much fresher, he may be able to mount an attack and kind of fight his way back up to a podium position.
That's his hope, and of course if there is a full course caution, hopefully there isn't, because it would be nice to go green all the way through the race, but should there be a full course caution, then Tony's, with those fresh tyres, would be in really good shape for the closing stages. Just 15 minutes to go in this race. Boy, that time went past quickly.
Indeed it did, and once Kujala got by, it kind of left the battle to Thompson and Kazimierz. He's been able to extend that gap back to Thompson. Thompson in that red, white, and blue number 14, and then Kazimets in that fluorescent orange number 60 with the Ukrainian flag colors on it, trying to stay there, trying to get those Michelins to their ideal working temperature and see if he can remount an attack on Parker Thompson. Right now, top three: Alex Koreiba, Patrick Kuyala, Parker Thompson. And for Koreiba, we said the pressure was squarely on his shoulders, and an ideal day for racing, the racetrack in great condition. His teammate hands him a perfect car, a lot of pressure on that young man's shoulders, and just like we saw at Daytona, he has been rock solid.
He has a lot of pressure here, though, for the number six car, Oscar Bitar, Anthony Mantella. It's a super battle between these two at this stage in the race, with now just under 14 minutes to go. And
Mantella really putting the pressure on Bitar in the 6, and the 46, Danny Vermael, not in the fight. That green and white number 46, not in the fight because he's down the order a couple of laps, but you saw him slide to driver's left and make it easy for Kuyala to go by. And that's the other thing that I like to see, the professionalism. Saw it by Jerry Kraut earlier. When he let the leader go by, he saw Memo Gidley coming and just pulled over and let him go by. It's another thing, the experience that Jerry Kraut has raced for so many years, raced these LMP3 cars in Europe, and just said, you know, I'm not in this fight. I'm not going to get involved in that. And you saw the same thing there when the 46 of Danny Vermael had the leaders coming through.
yeah, and just he's a driver that doesn't have a huge amount of experience, Danny Vermael, but other than in karting, where he's an absolute superstar for many, many years. He got an opportunity through IMSA Motorsports to drive in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo a couple of years ago, and was just outstanding right away. And as a result of that, he's got other opportunities to drive cars as well. He also won one of the races in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca a couple of years ago, driving now for Wayne Taylor Racing. But he got this opportunity here, and he is super fast. And you know, his co-driver is still getting up to speed, but for Danny Vermael, a great opportunity to shine. But this battle here is intense, as Parker Thompson has just lost that position to Tony Kazimets. And right behind him again still is Tyler Maxson, who just will not go away.
Well, yeah, that was interesting. I'm not sure where Kazimets was able to get that done. And meanwhile, we were talking about Danny Vermael as he came into the carousel, let the leaders through again and headed to pit lane. So perhaps they have a problem on the 46. Tyler Maxson. Yep, there's the 46. Thompson still being shown in third. I thought the Kazimets had gotten by. I guess that's not the case, but a problem for the 46. He's in pit lane. No problems for Alex Koreiba. Through the S's one more time. Madness up and over. Look at the car get light. You can see it. Thompson now is in the pits. What is going on here? Fuel?
Yes. Did they not get enough fuel on board?
Well, and that's a problem, obviously, because A, you're off the racetrack, but I go back to, as soon as the fuel probe goes in, this stop turns into 93 seconds. It doesn't matter if you've done your regular stop earlier. If you fuel in Prototype Challenge, it's a 93-second stop.
Yeah, so
there's damage to the left front. And is the shock cover off as well? Has he made contact with something? Oh, I thought the headlight lens on the left front might be missing, but the shock cover is missing there.
Yeah, but that's maybe, I mean, one has to assume that they just didn't get the fuel on board that car that they thought they did on their regular stop, which came with around about an hour to go. And given the fact that Memo Gidley ran, Tony Kazimets ran an hour and 9 minutes, should have been no problem there. But clearly there has been for Sean Creech Motorsports. That's going to be very, very costly. That's going to lose them a lap to the contenders. Dropping to the bottom end of the top 10. Meanwhile, Alex Koreiba doing a super job, nice and consistent laps at the front of the field, got a commanding lead, 45 seconds over that battle for second place between Koreiba. Well, Koreiba's actually pulled away now from Tony's Casemates.
Koreiba inside 10 minutes to go. Round 2 of the 2022 IMSA Prototype Challenge Championship. And we talk about this driver pairing. Memo Gidley slid into the car at Daytona somewhat last minute, unexpectedly, but this driver pairing has been absolutely spectacular. Alan Damalis, who owns this car, who was going to drive and then stepped out, said, I want to continue to make sure that it's fielded. The team, I made a commitment to them, so we're going to put this car out there. I made a commitment to Alex. And for Koreiba, it's the best thing that could have happened to him. You put an experienced driver in, because otherwise Alex and Alan were two inexperienced drivers in this car. You put an experienced driver in that could teach Alex the ways and how to improve a car, what to look for, thoughts about strategy, thoughts about racing in general, and how to make passes, all of that education that comes with it. And this young man has been nothing but a sponge, soaking it all in, and you can see it. And talking to the team, they said, it's unbelievable. The first couple of tests that we had, we were scratching our head going, I don't know how well this is going to work. Memo got here, and it was like the professor had arrived. Class was in session, and everyone has learned. John Church at JDC said, I think Memo may be available. And I kind of laughed and I said, I imagine Memo answered his phone and the first words out of his mouth were yes. He didn't even listen to what you had to say, John. You know, and yeah, you know, and it's been a great pairing ever since then. And the chemistry with that team is spectacular.
It is, isn't it? And chemistry is so important in this sport, but Memo has chemistry with everybody. He's just a great guy, as we were talking about earlier on. But Alex Koreiba, what an impressive young man. Just 24 years of age, from Branson, Missouri originally, and got this opportunity from Alex Damalis to drive this car, and he's grabbing that opportunity with both hands. It's been a super performance, nice consistent lap times, mid-19s is what he's doing at the moment. He doesn't have to worry about the fact that his lead has diminished just a little bit over second place Patrick Koreiba. He just, no point in pushing too hard in case there might be, even with only 7 minutes remaining, if there was a caution period and maybe a lap or two shootout at the end. He wants to make sure he doesn't take too much out of his Michelin tyres. That car ahead of him is David Grant, the last car on the lead lap in car number 40.
David Grant slides out of the way, lets the leader by into the keyhole. Meanwhile, Patrick Koreiba, you look back at where he is on the racetrack and the lead that Koreiba has. Koreiba's halfway down the back straightaway, and Koreiba just now coming into the carousel. 43 seconds. That's an eternity around this racetrack.
Yeah, basically half a lap, isn't it? Almost exactly half a lap around here. But it's still been an excellent performance by the number 77 team of Brian Thenis and Patrick Koreiba in that Ogara Change / US Racetronics entry. And going to come away with they hope here, second place finish, exactly as they did in the opening round of the championship at Daytona.
By the way, Jeremy, don't ever let me call strategy for a car. You know, I was saying I would have thought that perhaps the 60 would have stopped earlier and given Casemates more time to get back up. Well, they read that perfectly. Even after that 93-second stop, he rejoined the racetrack right there in third, dropped back a little bit, and then has moved forward. But, I mean, he didn't lose much at all. I thought he would be back in fifth or sixth, you know, well down the order, but didn't drop nearly as much as I thought he was going to. So like I said, don't ever let me call strategy. Or if I do, just tell me I'm wrong.
By the way, we saw that pit stop for the number 14 car, dropped him out of the fourth position. Lance Willsey has hopped back into that Sean Creech Motorsport entry. I think that's a pretty smart move, because Lance is also going to be driving, of course, this afternoon in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship race in an almost identical car for Sean Creech Motorsports to be sharing this afternoon with Joao Barbosa. So just getting some more track time here, so he's ready to go for this afternoon. Not a bad plan.
Well, let me ask you this, Jeremy. Is there a chance that perhaps they were short on drive time?
No.
For Lance?
No. He came well after the 40 minutes, I think. So, no, I think they probably realised they weren't going to be able to challenge for the lead at that stage. Parker wasn't going to be running up. He's not going for the championship, Lance Willsey. This is the first race of the season for Parker Thompson. Lance, I'm not sure whether he's planning to do all the races or not, but even so, I don't think he's going for the championship. So it's just a question for him of gaining some more track time in preparation for the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship race later on today. And the same with several other drivers in the race as well.
What's funny, I was talking to Lance this morning and yesterday as well, and this morning I walked up and he said, "You think there's anything else I can drive this weekend?" It's kind of like Mark Kwame, who drives just about anything that he can get into in today's race, and was supposed to be in the WeatherTech race, ran Michelin Pilot Challenge yesterday, runs Lamborghini Super Trofeo from time to time, and Lance, a stalwart in this LMP3 machinery. And in the beginning, he bought one just as a track car because he enjoyed the formula so much, and then was like, hey, no, this is fun, and did a lot of the races on his own. He just said, I enjoy the drive time, incredibly fit. And I asked him, remember, they won at Daytona, and I asked him, do you feel like with the championship, they did in the LMP3 category, I should say, and WeatherTech, and I asked him about having a championship on his shoulders, and he said, whether I'm in IPC or LMP3 and WeatherTech, I treat it like I treated surgery when I was an active surgeon. It's always the same, but it's always different, because every patient or every racetrack needs a different focus and a different approach. While the basic concept of it is the same, you have to approach it a little bit different if you want the result that you're after, and that's success. And he said, so I just enjoy it immensely, and he'll drive anything that he can whenever.
Well, and further to that, he's done quite a bit of GTD racing on and off over the years, has Lance Willsey, and he originally bought the LMP3 car just as a track day car, just to go have some fun, basically. But he had so much fun driving the car, he went out and bought another one.
Yeah.
He bought another one. So he had two cars. He was just he would go for a test session or a track day. He'd drive one car until it ran out of fuel. Then while they were refueling that car, he'd hop in the other one and go drive that one as well. Brilliant.
If one isn't enough, two is bound to be better. And what Alex Koreiba is looking for right now is the #1 position. I think he's going to have to do 2 more laps, because he came across the line with about 1 minute and 26 seconds left on the clock, and he's been turning 1 minute and 19-second lap times. He could slow down enough to make this the checkered flag lap if he wanted to, because he has that kind of a lead, but certainly looking for that first win. And one of the biggest cheerleaders watching this today is Bob Stallings. And if you're a race fan, you'll certainly remember Bob Stallings, the Red Dragon, back in the day in Daytona prototype category with the Gainsco sponsorship on the side of it. And he just sent me a text a minute ago. It said, Memo epitomizes the passion and determination of a professional race car driver. So happy for him. And I know a lot of the fans are too. I know a lot of the fans and family members for Alex Koreiba will be happy if he can bring this car home for about another 3.5 miles or 3 miles around the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. This team has been exemplary all weekend long, and they have not put a wheel wrong. Like I said, first in the first practice session, second quick in the second practice session, then led again in qualifying. Memo Gidley putting that car on the pole, and JDC Motorsports has handed these two drivers a spectacular ride, and they are going to enjoy it all the way to the checkered flag. 2.2 miles to go for Alex Koreiba. His first professional race win lies 2 miles down the road.
Yeah, and he's worked hard to create this opportunity for himself. I remember hearing from Alex 4 or 5 years ago, probably, when he was sort of just starting out, trying to make his way into the sport and asking all sorts of questions, the right questions. And here he is a few years later, all of a sudden driving this car and doing just a fantastic job. I'm really impressed with the job he did at Daytona. Okay, had to settle for third place at Daytona, but assuming he can get around this final half of the racetrack. Oh. That's a spinning Dylan McIvern in car number 18 for Mueller Motorsports. Another guy who's making his debut this weekend and is a busy boy this weekend. He was driving yesterday in the Michelin Pilot Challenge race, sharing with none other than Bill Oberlin. They had a great run going there until they ran out of fuel on the last lap. Yeah, tremendous effort here by Memo Gidley and Alex Koreiba, two of the most deserving men in this paddock.
Just a little bit of traffic in front. It will not be a factor. The 23 looking for the flag. Young Alex Koreiba looking for the flag, his first professional race win, and they do. They win at Mid-Ohio. Memo Gidley, Alex Koreiba, JDC Motorsports. What a drive this weekend. You know, Jeremy, some weekends you just have the car, and obviously these drivers have talent, but they just had such a good ride all weekend long. And Kuyala's slow over turn 9. He's slow and out of the way. Kazimets zips by. Kazimets will finish second. Kuyala dropping back. Tyler Maxson in there as well. Maxson into the carousel. It's Kazimets who will take second. Maxson takes third. What happened to Patrick Kuyala?
Got to be fuel. Got to be running out of fuel. I mean, he made his pit stop with around about an hour to go. He's been running super hard, and I think that's one of the reasons why Tony Kazimets wasn't super fast in the early stint of this race, because he was saving fuel. He wasn't running flat out. I'm pretty sure that'll be what the problem is for Patrick Kuyala. He's going to limp home now in 5th position. And what would have been the championship lead, or equal championship lead, has gone away for the Finn. That's a really unfortunate ending of this race for that number 77 team after a tremendous drive.
It's why we race, isn't it, Jeremy? It is not over until you make it around. I don't ever want to call anything until I know the car's across the line. And heartbreak for Kuyala. He was right there. He and Brian Thenis had good battles throughout, and it just all went away literally with 4 turns from the checkered flag.
Wow. That's talked about the points implications, and this is just massive for that team. With the second place finish today for the Daytona winners, Bruce Hamilton shared the car with Tony Kazimets at Daytona. Now it's Tony's on his own. He will have 670 points unofficially after today's second round of this 6-race series. In second position, 20 points back, will be Memo Gidley and Alex Koreiba, and now Brian Thenis and Patrick Kuyala would have been tied on points with the leaders. Instead, will fall to third on 580 as we head toward round 3.
Wow, what a day. This is a day that this young man will not forget. Maybe that young man either. He saw some great racing. You always do in IMSA Prototype Challenge. Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course certainly delivers. And for Alex Koreiba, Memo Gidley, congratulations on their first win of the series. Will there be more to come? There's more Prototype Challenge coming your way in 2022. For Jeremy Shaw, I'm Brian Till. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.